Rodrigo, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for this opportunity. So last year you were here in Toruń with your movie Killers of the Flower Moon, directed by Martin Scorsese. This year you are a member of the main competition jury, but we cannot overlook the PedroPáramo, the movie that you actually directed this time, and just has premiered in Poland just a few days ago.
Vine a Comala porque me dijeron que acá vivía mi padre. Un tal Pedro Páramo. Mi madre me lo dijo. Y yo le prometí que vendría, pues ella estaba por morirse y yo en plan de prometerlo todo.
Tell me, what's the story with Pedro Páramo? I know that the movie has been directed and shot in a city where actually your grandfather lived. Mm-hmm. Why? Why the story starts there?
Well, that's true. Well, the funny thing is that the whole Pedro Páramo thing started when I was in Oklahoma with Killers of the Flower Moon. That's when I was offered this project. So it's not something that I initiated, even though I've loved this novel for many, many years. I mean, since I was in high school, a teenager, basically. And so the opportunity came. I got a call from a friend of mine, producer, and he told me Netflix has bought the rights for Pedro Páramo, and they're looking for a director. And I said, I'll do it. So that's how it started. But talking about why we shot in San Luis Potosí, that's a state in Mexico where we filmed the locations. The story actually happens in Jalisco, which is a different state. We looked there, but we didn't actually find the very specific needs for the story. So we looked in many different states in Mexico, and finally it happened to be San Luis Potosí, where we found the dry desert area that a part of the story happens. But also in another part of the state, there's a lush area with a beautiful river, and so that gave us those two opportunities. And also we needed a town, streets of a town that would be deserted and that we could then also dress it to look not deserted. So that's why we went to San Luis Potosí, but it turns out that that's where my grandfather is from. And since this story really...
So you learned later that actually your grandfather was...
No. I knew that, but I didn't choose that place because of that reason. It was just the locations worked. But the story really of Pedro Páramo, it starts with one man going back to a town where he was born there, but he doesn't remember it. So he goes there looking for his roots, well, for his father, but basically his roots. So there was a parallel there of me going to San Luis Potosí, a town that I don't really know, and being in the place where my grandfather was.
Realmente sí, don Pedro. Usted perdone. Pedro Páramo.
I was actually trying to answer myself a question. Did you get this opportunity to direct Pedro Páramo because you are Mexican, because you wanted to get back to your roots, to the place that actually shaped you, to Mexico?
I think Netflix and my friend producer thought that I would be a good choice to direct it because Juan Rulfo, the author of the book, was also a photographer, a still photographer. And he only wrote Pedro Páramo in another book of a collection of short stories called El Llano en Llamas. So the rest of his time, he was actually working as a tire salesman, wheels for cars. He would go all over Mexico selling tires, and he'd take his camera and photograph the people and the landscape. And so that was an important inspiration for us visually. But I have this suspicion that I was considered as a director for it because of the fact that I am a cinematographer, and the novel, even though it's there's a lot of dialogue in it, but it's also very atmospheric. There's a lot of things that are strange and surreal, but also descriptions that are very particular, that are literary. So how do you translate those literary descriptions in poetry, really, the way Juan Rulfo writes, into a movie? So I think they thought maybe a cinematographer can do it.
Yeah, exactly. And Pedro Páramo is a classic of literature. So I think not everybody knew that you are such an outstanding director, because we know and we knew that you're a great cinematographer, but we didn't realize that you're such an excellent director.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
When I think of Camerimage Festival, this is what we had a chance to chat a few minutes before the interview. For me, Camerimage Festival is, when I think about the festival, it's you and Ed Lachman. So it's something special to have such a great figures here at Camerimage Festival. How do you feel, being here, and especially this year, being a member of the main competition jury?
This is a very special festival, and certainly I think the main reason is the enthusiasm of the people that are here and that go to the movies, the enthusiasm to cinematography. And there's so many other festivals that don't even have an award for cinematography. I mean, even Cannes and Venice, they don't even consider cinematography when it's the main partnership with a director, at least in the filming of a movie, is with a cinematographer. So I think that's why this festival is to me very important. But also, when I first started coming, my heroes were also here, and I saw Vilmos Zsigmond here and Vittorio Storaro and people like that I was, in awe to see them and to be able to approach them and be close to them and talk to them. So that's why for me also when I'm here and students and people that like cinematography approach me and ask me questions, it feels like it's a good opportunity to really talk about it, because they really do care. I mean, when the credits come on in the movies here, and even certainly the cinematographer is applauded, but the camera team and the lighting team, they're applauded too. And I think that's really wonderful. I really enjoy it.
One of the directors, the cinematographers actually told me, we're not on the red carpets. We're not used to be in a first line of the people who are actually wanted to be photographed. We are those behind the cameras. So that was also something very special.
Yeah.
How has the festival opened your eyes to Polish cinema and broadly to Central and Eastern European cinema, which is definitely completely different what you are producing in Hollywood?
Right. Well, I've always been aware of the tradition of Polish cinema, I've always actually admired Polish cinematography, for example. It's something that had a big influence, I think, in a lot of cinematographers around the world, and I do remember that in Mexico when I was in film school. And I haven't really had a chance to see much of the Polish cinema that's here, because I'm either showing a movie that I shot and, busy with the interviews and things like that.
Or at the classes.
But yes, and master classes and stuff like that. But I am very happy to observe that there is also a new generation of Polish cinematographers that are amazing. And I find a parallel in Mexico. There's a strong visual tradition in both our cultures. And I feel closeness to the Polish people, just because of the times I've been here in Poland. But I feel, even though we're so far away in every sense, culturally and geographically, I feel brotherhood and sisterhood with the Polish population somehow. I don't know, I feel like in many other countries it feels very foreign, but Polish people feel very familiar.
I think Polish and Mexican have this, this feeling of, our roots and traditions, what's, as you mentioned before.
Yes.
I had a chance also to speak with one of the producers at the market, and she said that she see that there's a lot of actually productions moving from Hollywood to Europe to this part, because it's cheaper and it's, more efficient for them. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, no, that is definitely a trend, and it's actually a problem. For example, the crew I work with in Los Angeles.
Yeah, exactly.
They're struggling. And so between movies, to be able to choose the next movie, I photograph commercials. And that's how also I keep...
And you work with, for example, Taylor Swift.
Yes, music videos too, exactly. That helps me keep the crew that I work with in Los Angeles working, and of course they have other jobs, but it is an issue for a town like Los Angeles that's been traditionally a place of Hollywood, of cinema, right? So it's complicated, but indeed, right now we're in a difficult time because first the pandemic, but then the strikes that happened, and so I think the studios and the producers were like, okay, guys, goodbye, you know. So it's complicated, but you know, I'm from Mexico, so and I shot PedroPáramo in Mexico, so some production has been going down there too. So at least that's happening in my area of the world.
So the last question, if you, of course, would like to answer that, there's this controversy regarding the Marek Żydowicz remarks about the representation of women cinematographers in the lineup that has unfolded. I know that there has been a panel discussion about that. Can you share with us your perspective, your state on that?
Well, I must say that in Mexico, I've seen how there are many more female cinematographers than when I was starting. It was extremely unusual. I remember Selena Cárdenas, a friend of mine, who was starting a little after me, but you know, she put her foot in and she stayed in for the longest time, and she's fantastic. But that was almost it. I can't even think of another female cinematographer at that time. Directors, yes, but not cinematographers. So I'm happy to say that it's, in Mexico at least, it's changed. There's a lot of female cinematographers that are doing great work and being recognized too. And in fact, I was just recently a jury member on a festival of Apertura, it's called, and it's an organization of female cinematographers. And so the work I was seeing was just female cinematographers, and it was excellent. And I enjoyed that very much because I do think you sometimes, you have to push, you have to make an effort to bring change. And you could think, why would you have an organization of just female cinematographers? That's excluding the male cinematographers. Well, right now it's necessary, you know, so I'm, that's why I was happy to support Apertura, and I think that change is coming, just as I've seen it happening in Mexico, and I think it's important that this discussion is happening. In a way, it's a blessing.
Of course.
So instead of, for me, instead of saying, cut their heads or whatever, it's like, okay, thank you for this chance to talk about this and to bring awareness, and even the talking about it, even, you know, there's passion in this conversation, and I think that's healthy, as long as it's not destructive. Because even my film, PedroPáramo, is about how resentment can be so destructive. That's, I think, the main subject of my film. So I think that it's important to talk and have passion, but let's not destroy.
I think we can both agree that this is definitely what's happening here at Camerimage Festival.
Yes.
Rodrigo, thank you so much. It was a huge pleasure for me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the interest.
Thank you.